Okay, good to go, Mike.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Association for Business Technology Professionals chapter meeting for May. It's my pleasure as the president, my name is Mike Rochelle, to invite you to join us for the next couple of hours as we have a really interesting panel with James from Toronto and Nina from Oregon, myself and Fanny here in the DFW area. And then we're going to be joined by Toby Buckalew, Tom Sweet, and Aaron Rundall to join James as we talk about what's going on with COVID, how is business going to change, and what are we going to do about it. So for those of you who don't know who the Association for Business Technology Professionals, we've been around since 1952 in various organizational contexts, and we're really about cultivating a ethical, people-oriented business technology group that helps everybody grow together. So I'd like to ask for Sally, one of our board members, to share with us an opening prayer, also to talk about mercy ships and the DFW prayer breakfast, which is one of the things that we sponsor every year. So Sally?
Thanks, Mike. Bow with me. Father in heaven, thank you for this time that we could come together as technologists and hear the wisdom that you have given to these technology practitioners. Thank you for this time as we come together. It's in the name of Jesus Christ that I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So the DFW Technology Prayer Breakfast is an event that's held every October. This is our 7th year. And this year we are so excited to have mercy ships come and speak this year. Mercy Ships is a medical organization that takes ships to Africa. And the amount of technology that's required on these ships is amazing. They're working with all the vendors that we work with on land, from Dell to I can't even name them all. So we're really excited to see what they have to say and how their use of technology, and we look forward to you joining us in October. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks very much, Sally. I appreciate you introducing the DFW Prayer Breakfast. We've been sponsoring that organization for the last 4 years or so. I think this is their 7th year, and we typically have about 1,000 technology executives at this breakfast, so it's quite the event. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the various programs the Association for Business Technology Professionals has. We obviously have our technical chapter meeting that happens on the 4th Tuesday of every month. We also have, for those that are seeking either career opportunities or seeking roles currently, the Business Technology Networking Group, which is chaired by one of our board members, Chuck Vanderweel. They actually met today at 4 o'clock, and we'll have a picture of that group after the main session today when we do a little more details in the business section. We have student chapters at the Dallas Baptist University and are talking to many other universities. We have a senior leadership forum, which is a ICCP certified leadership professional experience. And we have partners or groups of affinity. And we're really excited about the partnership that we have with Infotech. And that's why Nina and James are here with us tonight. So we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. And we'll also talk about it in detail as far as what the membership partnership is with Infotech after the session tonight. We do have quite a few sponsors. So as you see, Infotech is not only a partner, but they're a sponsor because of the value that they're providing to our members. For those of you who are engaged, it's worth $1,000 to $2,000 per year to get engaged with Nina DeFrancisco, to take advantage of all of the things that Infotech is providing us that comes with your membership, which is about $150 a year. So it's a really great deal. We also have a sponsorship with Cloudix and Caboli. And Deepak Seth is going to be talking about that at the conclusion of our main session this evening. I want you to save the date because we have 3 additional speakers that are lined up for June, July, and August. They're going to be sharing some fairly extraordinary things. So I'm going to ask Fanny, if you could bring Tom Sweet in, and I'll introduce Elise and Robert. And then as I do that, then I'll ask Tom to talk about June and what he's going to be talking about, he and his panel. So in July, Elise Cortez is going to be talking on the post-COVID-19 reimagination opportunity. So in conversations that she and I've had for a long time, her work is primarily around the meaning that people put into work and driving and living a purposeful life. So we're going to really focus on pioneering the world in which we want to work in. So tonight we're talking about the things that are happening from a ecosystem perspective. This is going to be, we have an opportunity to change the way we work, how we want to change it. So it's going to be a fabulous conversation with Elise and several of the people that come to her Voice America program every month. In August, we'll have Robert Hunt, and he's going to take it one level further. How do we actually hold ourselves accountable and those organizations in which we serve accountable to live up to the things that we say we want to live up to? So it's going to be a fabulous conversation with Robert Hunt in August. And then I see that Tom is here with us. So Tom, can you talk about a little bit about what you're going to talk about in June?
Sure. So in June, I'm going to talk about how you manage your career in uncertain times, just kind of like the title says. It's not just if you're out of work, but if you do have a job and you want to maintain that and continue to grow, how you can take advantage of all the free training that's available to you, how to be intentional about your career, how to help others along the journey that you're on, and how to get mentorship, how to interview, how to learn from mistakes I've made. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of what I've done with my career. And I want to make sure I'm giving back. So that's what it's about.
That's great. We're also going to bring a panel because as we've experienced in the last couple of times, these conversations go well when we have multiple voices. So Tom and I will be selecting that in the next week or so and documenting who those are later. So Tom, I'm really looking forward to next month, and we'll talk to you a little bit later tonight as well.
Sure.
So with that, I'd like to ask Nina DeFrancisco. Nina has been a partner of the Association for Business Technology Professionals since we were the Association for Information Technology Professionals. She actually helped us put together our first CIO roundtable last year, which was a phenomenal success. And now she's in a new role with Infotech and is bringing all of the great benefits that Infotech has to our members. So it's my pleasure to introduce Nina DeFrancisco, who's going to introduce James Alexander, and then I'll introduce the panelists. So Nina.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm Nina. And although I will be diving in a little bit deeper in detail on what our relationship looks like between Infotech and all of you members, I will first introduce James Alexander, who is our Senior Vice President at Infotech. So James is has been responsible for spearheading the development and delivery of our COVID Response Research Center. And then prior to COVID, he's held a variety of different executive positions, from leading research to vendor management to innovation. So today, thank you, James Alexander, for joining us, and look forward to your presentation with the rest of the panel.
Thanks, Nina.
Well, yeah, thanks, Nina, and thanks, Mike, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. One of the things that we have discovered in doing the research and in the conversations that I've had the opportunity to have with many practitioners, IT leaders such as yourselves, is that this is a fast-moving, fast-changing, very, very dynamic scenario. So I'm really very, very glad to be joined by our 3 panelists who will help us to position the response to the new normal, because it is changing every day, and I'm looking forward to learning things from them, as I know you are as well. So I'll turn it back to Mike to introduce the panelists.
Thanks very much, James. I just want to introduce you guys, and I'm going to do it alphabetically because it is fair that way, to Toby Buckalew. Toby is the CIO at OneShare Health. He's been active in the association for many years and is a great supporter. So looking forward to hearing how things are going, Toby, as we have this conversation tonight, and perhaps learning a little bit more about how OneShare Health is responding to this as well. Joining us as well is Aaron Rundall. Aaron actually joined us in January with Rusty Kennington and did such a great job. I thought, hey, let's bring Aaron back to share a new perspective that he has, because he's just started with a new company at Kubota Tractor Corp. Aaron Rundall is joining us as well. And then finally, but not necessarily last, is Tom Sweet. Tom's been a long-term 2-year supporter of the association, has sent a slew of people from GM Financial to our Senior Leadership Forum, has spoken a couple of times to our chapter meetings, and as you know, will be headlining next month. So Tom, thanks very much for not only coming to this as a panelist, but allowing us to move around the topics, because this topic is so important for this time. So thanks a lot for all of you for joining us. And James, I'll turn it over to you and you can get started. Nina and I'll come back after the session is completed.
All right. Thanks, Mike. If you can put the first slide up, I would appreciate that. The topic today is preparing your organization to embrace what we're calling the new normal. And that's kind of the headline. The subtext, though, which is very important, is we've all done a lot to get ready to prepare our organizations to weather this crisis. There's a lot of things we've changed. Some of them will remain, and some things we will return to the way they were. But whatever the scenario that evolves, one thing we can be sure of is that IT must be ready to adapt, to lead the organization through these phases of recovery into the new normal. And the format will be pretty simple today. I'm going to just spend a few minutes kind of positioning where we are today, what we've been through, and what we may likely face ahead. And then I've got 4 topics, 4 kind of themes to the new normal, and how we adapt. And I'm going to position each one of those. Then we'll have a panel discussion, and of course we'll welcome your questions as well about each one. And we'll move through the 4, depending on how lively the debate and discussion is. We may or may not get through all 4, but that's kind of the fun of doing these things with a panel of practitioners and experts who are dealing with an issue real time. So. Can we move to, I think, one more slide? I'll leave this for Nina. March 11th is sort of the date that that we changed from observing what was going on in the world around us to actually being kicked into action, because March 11th was the date the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. And in many ways, I don't know about you, but that was March 11th. I feel like it's about March 53rd now. And whether you call this pandemic a black swan event, or I've heard people call it a white swan event, a gray swan event, it's clearly, certainly in my career, probably the most significant crisis that we've had to manage through. And while the economic drop has been precipitous, most people I talk to believe we're somewhere near or just beyond the bottom of this chart and beginning the long, slow climb back up. And there'll really be, in its simplest terms, a couple of phases to this climb back up. The first one is emergence, which I think we're beginning to go through today, where the challenge will be to maintain what we've established as a working environment, but maybe make that a kind of a hybrid working environment as we begin to gradually resume regular operations. And then once the recovery is well established, we'll get back to normal, whatever that might look like in our various geographies, industries, and organizations. Whether this will take 6 months or 12 months or longer remains an open question. And if you could switch to the next slide, Mike. As does the shape of what the recovery may look like, because as we have progressed through this, we're beginning to see that there may be other scenarios at play for our organization, our industry, our particular geography. So the scenario on the left, and here the blue line tracks the number of COVID-19 cases. The green line tracks the economic scenario that we're in. And so, kind of the most optimistic scenario is the one I showed on the last slide, which is the one on the left, where we flatten the curve as we have done in many places, and then cases descend and economic recovery ensues in kind of that slow, gradual way. We're beginning to think, though, that we may be in this second scenario, the oscillation scenario, where we end up with a second or perhaps a second and third wave going on in terms of COVID-19 cases. And by the way, if you look back to the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918 to 1920, this is what happened then. And of course, we are not living in 1918 to 1920, but we may end up having to bring people back to work, send them home again, open offices, restaurants, return to normal, and then go back into some kind of a lockdown. So that's kind of a scenario people are beginning to prepare for as well. And then probably the worst scenario is the one on the right, where we level off, but it's a long time before COVID-19 cases begin to drop. And so the economic recovery is not swift. And in fact, we lose consumer confidence, and we change a lot of the ways that we act as a society on a more permanent basis. And probably the reality is it'll be neither of these three curves. It will be something, that is different than each of them. But in any event, IT leaders are going to have to prepare for a variety of scenarios here. Next slide, please.
Hey, James, can we go ahead and make a disclaimer now, just to let everybody know that we are here as individuals, as parts of a not-for-profit organization. So any of the commentary that we share tonight is our own commentary. That's for all of the panelists. I don't know, James, how you think about that. But for those of us who are here as panelists, that we're just stating our opinion. So please don't hold our organizations responsible for those opinions.
Fair enough. Next slide, please. Now, not every crisis is a pandemic, and of course, we've been through a few over recent decades. And as you can see from this Oxford University study, which occurred after the 2008-2010 recession, while all organizations go through the same crisis, not everyone emerges in the same way. In fact, regardless of where you are or what industry you're in, it's the way you respond, the things that you do coming out of the crisis that determines the real fate of your firm. Some will fight to survive, while others will thrive. And I know it's tempting to think of natural losers and winners here. For example, the travel industry has been decimated by the pandemic, as we all know. But at the end of the day, people will return to travel. So even if the travel industry ends up contracting in the new normal by, say, 25%, not every hotel company, not every airline will go out of business. Some will be winners here in that sector. And similarly, at the other end of the spectrum, we see industries that are very busy right now. Of course, healthcare is one, transportation and logistics is another, but they won't all end up winners. because their competitors, people in adjacent markets, will rush to fill that market. You're seeing, for example, food suppliers who would normally supply restaurants recalibrating so they can supply grocery stores, so they can supply food into the home, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the message here is that at the end of the day, we're all going to have to work very hard to adapt our value streams and our business capabilities in the new normal. So let me just move to a kind of a final slide to recap where we've been before I bring the panel in. So you can just pass through this one. I think we'll cover this one off in the panel discussion. To the next slide, please, Mike. Thanks very much. So what have we done? And by the way, we accomplished all of this really in less than a month after that March 11th date. So the first thing we did was that for safety's sake, we sent everyone home. And this meant finding new ways for them to communicate and collaborate and to access the tools that they would use on an everyday basis right within the traditional workspace, the office environment. And I think, I think we were surprised, most of us, by how well this actually ended up going. Second, of course, as I alluded to earlier, we put the brakes on corporate travel and personal travel as well. And so conferences and events like this have moved online. And we're now developing relationships screen to screen instead of face to face. And I think we'll look back on this and find that we learn new competencies around creating distance intimacies, and maybe around how to actually make sure your head's the right level above the screen, as I was instructed earlier. And with both our professional and personal lives being done from our living rooms, we're seeing increased self-autonomy. And this is kind of critical to the new normal, because we're now learning to manage results rather than hours of work. And even from a personal perspective, we're taking more control of our health care, of our finances, and even our children's education in new and oftenly digitally enabled ways. Online communities, of course, are flourishing as never before. We're seeing increased social media interaction, outreach, and support in some of these areas. Virtual concerts and gatherings are replacing in-person events, and we now visit museums and exhibitions from the comfort of our own living rooms. Finally, one of the things that's probably not as well documented or evident is we are certainly seeing a move towards decentralization. And if you think about it, a lot of the pronouncements that have been made throughout the pandemic have been made at a national level. They've been made at a corporate head office level. But a lot of the decisions and the implementation of those are being done at a local level. In a sense, we are coming together as communities as never before, creating, delivering, and consuming community resources locally. And probably the most interesting thing about all of this is that it was enabled, for the most part, by the work that you and your teams put in. We didn't invent anything new to cope with this. And for a lot of us, we didn't actually have to purchase anything. Maybe some of us had to purchase laptops, but a lot of this response was about enabling tools that we already had and enabling our communities to be able to use those tools. So in a sense, it's really been IT's time to shine. And I think you should all be very, very proud of what you accomplished in terms of keeping your businesses, your communities, and indeed the economy running during this time. So congratulations on that. The real question, though, is as we return to normal, what will normal look like? A lot of things have worked pretty well so far, but as we emerge, we're going to be faced with new challenges. So let me just frame up our first discussion, which will be on probably the most fundamental or the most obvious change that has been made, because we sent people home to work. And here a couple of stats you see at the bottom of the slide from the Becker Friedman Institute. So as of April 2020, 50% of U.S. workers reported that they were working from home, even though only 37% of them said they could actually do their job properly from home. So a little bit of a disconnect there. But we haven't seen the kind of drop in productivity many of us had feared. And in fact, we've seen some benefits from it, from what our workforces are reporting, not just in IT, but across our organizations. Less stress for travel, greater opportunity, ability to manage our home life in what has been a challenging situation, less congestion on the roads, et cetera, et cetera. So the real question is, will we maintain this work from home environment, or will we return, or will it be some kind of a hybrid amongst that? So let me turn to the panel now, and just start with our first question, which is, are you going to return to your workforce to the office? Is it imminent? Do you expect it to happen gradually, or are you going to avoid doing that altogether? So, return to the office, panel.
I'll start. So I think IT will be the last to return. We already have some groups who've started returning, different business groups, and they're returning with a number of additional safety measures in place that weren't there prior to this, such as masks, such as social distancing, such as stickers on which way to walk. But IT is really successful remote, and the team members know that IT's been successful. So it's going to be hard to convince everyone to go back full time when everyone knows it works remote. But there are people who do want to get back at least sometimes. So I think we're probably going to be hybrid, 50%. And I think a lot of other companies are going to take a similar approach.
Anybody else want to take a run at that one?
Oh, yeah. Tom, you had a great start. Our office, we're starting a partial return on Monday. In fact, I'm going back in tomorrow as part of that planning process. But we're taking a phased approach. We're bringing in a subset of our contact center staff that have been working successfully remotely. Some need the break from being home alone, detached from people. We find that there's those extroverts that need that human element in order to do this long term. On the other side, there are those introverted people that are excelling without the forced social interaction of being in an office with lots of people. So we're finding some people work better remote. Some people really need to get back into a social environment. But instead of bringing everybody back at once, we're bringing them back in phases. So we'll bring in a subset so we can adequately social distance in the office. Just like Tom mentioned, we're laying out directional arrows in the aisles on which ways to walk to minimize face-to-face contact. But we're also bringing in people and then waiting 2 weeks to see how things develop around the community. That way, if there is something that takes place, we do have to start returning the other direction, we minimize the risk of exposure to our staff as we bring them back. But in the other part of that Tom also hit on was not everybody's coming back right away. For us, we were space constrained. We grew to a point in which we outgrew our space and there's nowhere to put us. We were forced to start looking at what we call Band-Aid space. Tens of thousands of dollars a month for a short-term lease somewhere to get us enough time for people to work while we look for a full-time home. This situation has forced us to reconsider that option of, instead of paying all this money for Band-Aid space, we've proven that we can successfully work remotely as an entire company. But we can definitely, as we bring people back, have certain parts of the company continue to work remotely until we get to a point in which society calms down. We're through this pandemic exercise, and we can get back to the new normal.
Toby, let me just ask you a follow-up question there. I've heard organizations adopting different criteria for bringing people back. So some organizations are saying we'll have Monday, Wednesday people, and another group of people that's Tuesday, Thursday. Other organizations have said, we will have people come back by age because, depending upon their vulnerability, as an example. I've heard other people say we'll leave it up to the employees. We may have to change job responsibilities because, employee A, who's an in-office employee, may need to take some of employees B's responsibilities because they're best done in the office. So have you considered, how are you organizing this gradual staged return back to work?
Oh, James, a great question, because there's a lot of effort that goes into it. Like anybody else out there these days, we've made a lot of heavy use of the collaboration tools out there. And for us, that meant a lot of Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Forms embedded in Teams to do our employee surveys, to identify those who are at higher risk because of health issues, who might be forced to take care of young children with the limited access to childcare today in the DFW area, or those who are caring for an elderly person whose health may be impacted if they bring something back. So we're trying to identify those individuals that are at higher risk or are at higher risk to immediate family that they're taking care of, so we can put them lower on the list for coming back. And higher on the list would be those who have a need. It's a mental issue. They need to get back into a social environment. B, it might be a personal issue at home. As we all know, you can't be locked up with your kids for too long without wanting to kill them yourself. So some people need that separation. And others are simply because, well, not everybody works well remotely, and they need a little extra helping, especially those that are young in the company. They need that extra experience, that hand-holding, that mentoring, that coaching. So as we go through and identify those who are capable of coming back, who want to come back, we'll bring those people back first. Why force someone in who really doesn't need to be coming back right away, who still has some mental anguish about coming back, they're still nervous about it, or who has a medical need to remain home or segregated for the time being.
So thanks for that. And Aaron, let's bring you into the conversation here. Kubota Tractor, you have big things that you build. The issues are different for you, I presume.
Yeah, so we have million square foot warehouses that we're pushing parts out on a daily basis, and plus whole tractors that we're selling and delivering to our dealership. So from a corporate perspective, we have a very regimented and very well communicated plan. I've been through it. I was in the office last week, and looks like we're going to move to some type of percentage wise, whether you're a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, or in 1 week, out 1 week. There's something along those lines that the executive leadership team is working on. For people that are still coming in the office currently, we have you come in a certain door, you follow the blue tape in the direction that you go, you answer kind of 5 basic questions. You get a mask if you don't have your own. You kind of walk through another area. You get to another point where you actually check into the building. And then from there, you go through another kind of walk and you get your temperature taken. And then you get a wristband. And that shows that you've obviously gone through the entire procedure to protect our other employees. And then you're required to wear the mask as you move throughout the building. It's worked very well. It's very efficient. They have 6 feet away from each other from the dots and stuff like that. And having joined the company remotely, I hadn't even been in the office I'd been in the company a little over a month, and finally made it into the office and, went through the process, and it was very seamless. So that's great. And then when you look at our facilities out there, I have not a lot of people that I know out there yet, but I did talk to one guy, and we're looking at those kiosks that'll basically take your temperature and read your face and kind of make sure that you're squared away, and if you don't run a temp, then you can actually get through. And I think I've been hit up quite a few by some people here on LinkedIn, and it shows that a lot of those companies are there, and that technology is here to stay.
So you bring up an interesting point around protocols for not just returning to the office, but protocols for coming to the office every day. Tom, what are you putting into place, and what about the emotional impact of having to wear a mask, having to be checked into the office? I mean, have you given any thought to that in your organization?
Well, I think we're going to do a lot of that. I don't think we have the wristbands, but we are talking about the application with attesting to your feeling in good health. There's talk of the temperature being taken. I asked if there's going to be a big tent outside because they're going to stagger the entry into the building. And I was asking, well, it sometimes rains really hard here in the morning. Are they going to get a really big tent, or how's that going to be handled if you're trying to funnel an individual or a group of individuals to one door? But it brings up another point. Who wants to go back to that? Do you want to continue working from home when the alternative is, hey, maybe working from home is not all that good if you have dogs that bark every time the mailman comes or something. But do you want to go back and have to wear a mask and have to be accused of not standing 6 feet from a person or getting too close to them? Or do you want to have to go through all that? And then there's the issue of the privacy of your medical data. If there's a lot of apps being created very quickly, who owns that data? If I say I'm sick, who owns that? So those are other things that I think about personally when we look at this new world.
My wife just had to fill out a survey that came from her organization talking about whether she'd like to return to the office, what the limitations might be for her to return to the office, how she felt about safety issues, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, we looked at it and we said, is there going to be a stigma attached to people who say, I don't want to come back to the office? Do we end up creating a workforce that is, where you have office people and non-office people? How do we deal with that? I mean, what will an organization think of someone who says, I like working from home. I'm more productive. I have better home work balance. Are we going to stigmatize those people?
Yeah.
One thing, I say we've noticed people are working more from home. Right? One thing is people start about 7 in the morning and they end at 6 at night sometimes because they're home. They get up instead of driving a car. They are just getting on, logging in, and just staying there, kind of eating lunch, bringing the computer into the kitchen while they make lunch if they're on a call.
And is that a good thing on long term?
I don't think it's a good thing in a long run, but I think people are doing a little bit more than they had in the past. And so as far as stigmatizing it, I don't really know. But prior to this, I had 2 full-time remote employees who were going to leave the company due to love interests, and I was able to work and negotiate really some of our first full-time remote employees prior to this, and it worked out. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, where when we look at talent, I think Facebook just said they're going to look at talent in Dallas as remote talent. So I don't know whether we're going to have the stigma. I think we're past that now, and we will have a full-time remote workforce that will be treated mostly equal, except for potentially C-level executives or really high-level individuals in the company. But I do see opportunities there for remote leadership roles too. So.
Yeah, I want to get to Mark's question in just a second. Thank you, Mark, for sending that in, because I'm interested in the answer to that. Either of you two, what about this notion of, will I be thought of differently if I say, no, I want to continue working from home? Well, a lot of organizations did not embrace people working from home up until very recently.
Oh, well, that one, I like to say the cat's out of the bag. Anyone who's ever had a cat, sometimes they don't want to be picked up. You put them somewhere, they're going to fight you tooth and nail. And this situation simply has forced people to address the work from home scenario. Some were dead set against it. Some is because of their business history, how they were raised in business. For others, it was the way they think things are done. How do you manage people you can't see? We've all worked with somebody who made sure that they watched everything you did all day long, and that was their management style. How do you do that when someone is not in front of you, where you can't see what they're doing all the time? With, of course, today you can always put in invasive software to do that, but it's kind of counterproductive in that regard. So the situation today has forced people to stop and rethink those long, tried, true management styles and techniques and reevaluate the situation. And there will be some who are dead set against working from home still, but there's a larger number of people today who are now more open to it than were just a few months ago because of what we've been through. And so I don't think it's going to ever go back the way it was completely. We'll have some combination of on-premise, off-premise, remote, hybrid, or hotel seating where people come in the office once a week for team meetings once in a while.
But all that makes from our perspective as IT leaders, I mean, it's been remarkably easy. You send everyone home. You want to collaborate. You put a tool in like Teams. You know where everyone is. They're all at home. But if I have some people in the office using meeting rooms, other people at home, other people traveling, and then I'm never sure where everyone is, doesn't that create, and Aaron, I'll start with you on this one. What does that create as a nightmare for IT to be able to manage, and what kind of tools might you need to be able to manage that?
Yeah, great question. Something I haven't quite figured out yet. I mean, we leverage the tool sets that we have to, and you can see if your people are online or offline. Really what it comes down to is trusting your employees, making sure the work's getting done, and really embracing it, because like you said, a lot of people did not like the work from home. I'll be fully transparent. I worked from home for a while, went back to an office, and struggled with people that wanted to work 100% remote. And so it's come full circle for me to manage the team this way. And interesting, I onboarded remotely. I had to have video calls with 21 people on my team, just to introduce myself and to meet them, and still haven't met all of them in person. So, I work from a one-on-one perspective. We have video calls, make sure the team, sees me. I'm being, visible to make sure that they know I'm here for them, and all of those other things. But it's from a tool set perspective, I don't think you want to get into the big brother aspect of making sure people are on their computers and doing things like that. It just shows distrust in your team, when really you should be doing the exact opposite, and trusting them and verifying to make sure that things are getting done and people are doing their jobs. But I think that's where I stand on that one.
Are we all in agreement? It's a Ronald Reagan moment: trust and sometimes at least verify.
And manage.
There are other things that you can do from a documentation of objectives and a discipline regarding the production capability of an individual that allows you to know whether they're doing their work or not. So you don't have to be Big Brother. You can just be an enlightened leader and know, right?
Yeah, well, in a sense, I mean, it's almost like, and again, IT leads the way, maybe in a sense, but we almost like we need to bring agile practices now beyond software development into everyday way that we manage across all departments, and I certainly see a lot of organizations doing that. Tom, you kind of opened the topic. You talked a little bit about, okay, so we're going to test everybody. What do we do with that data? What do we do with that information? We just wrote a brief called Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Pandemic Containment, Contact Tracing and Data Privacy in the Time of COVID-19. We had a question on that. I mean, where do we stand on contact tracing? Again, knowing that you're speaking personally and not for your organization. So thanks, Mike, for freeing everybody up on that. But I mean, there's some serious. If you look at some of the countries that best handled the onset, at least, of the crisis. Places like, Korea, where everybody is contact traced just as a matter of course. And thank you, Mark. The issue of HIPAA compliance as well. So there's a whole lot of, I realize that there's a big wrap around that. But where do we stand on that? By the way, we just did a poll of our members, and we said if the government created a standard for contact tracing and suggested this was the application that everyone should use, how many people would have faith and feel comfortable using that application? And so far, it's only about 45% of people that would feel comfortable with a government-endorsed program for contact tracing. Even that seems high to me.
I don't know how my company is going to handle that. I'm not deep in that part of the company, but I don't want my information sold and you lose control of it once it happens. And this is not the only pandemic we're going to have. When the flu comes out again, there's going to be a group of people that believes that we should follow the same principles for COVID-19 and then apply that to the flu or whatever else happens down the road. And is this something that is going to go away, or are we going to completely change how we've expected freedom in this country? And I think that I can see it. This is an opportunity for people to exert more control on the population.
Yeah, it's one of those slippery slopes when you want to do the right thing, but to do so, you have to give up some of your privacy, some of your personal information. And it's ironic, really. We talk about the government getting access to information, and a lot of people assume they have access to more than they really do. But when we turn the camera the other direction and we look at private industry, like in another life, we purchased demographic data that came through some mapping software to allow us to map our patient data onto demographic data that's publicly available for sale through Experian, the great credit agencies. And you'd be amazed at how much they know about me that I didn't know about myself when you started looking at that data. And this is one of those things, and if we know that Salesforce is doing a contact tracing application, Google's talked about it, Facebook's talked about it. So if you have these large database companies, data-driven companies, and they're getting access to this data, that data is valuable to other companies in their databases. So then how does that go forward from an ethical standpoint? Because we don't always look at those terms and conditions when we check the box. And when we sign up for Facebook, we check the box. We sign up for these Google things, we check the box. It says, hey, your data belongs to us, and we can do what we want. We can sell that to whomever we want, and they do. So the question becomes, how comfortable are we as a population? Forget the government for a minute. Look at private industry and the dollars that can be generated from that data, and how valuable this COVID data is going to be to somebody. And so we as consumers need to be aware of that and what we're agreeing to when we look at these apps on any app store, on any download, because this is going to be the next, one of my predictions is this is going to be the next malware type attack, the next ransomware type attack that we see when people start releasing that data to these different apps and these different private companies, and that data is compromised. So then where do we go from there?
But Toby, as you point out, I mean, we're already giving away a lot of our data by virtue of signing these agreements. And by the way, if we don't sign the agreement, we have no option to say, hey, Mr. Google, I don't agree with clause 17. I mean, the Google lawyer doesn't phone you up and say, oh, Toby, I'll renegotiate clause 17 just for you. So what if our businesses say to us, it's either agree to the contact testing or contact tracing, or you can't come to work here. I mean, that's the situation that it's going to be impossible for the individual to handle. It's going to have to be society that makes that decision. Is it not?
Well, it is. You think about it, and the one challenge we have is in a business as a private organization, they can do that. If it's not discriminatory and it's enforced across the board, they can do it as part of a matter of company policy. And this goes back to Mark's question about Hipaa compliance. And this is where a lot of businesses fail to understand Hipaa, is that a business, especially with offering insurance to their employees, often comes in contact with medical information about their employees. And that is medical data, technically belongs to the individual, not the company, but the company has a legal responsibility to protect that data, just like they're a doctor's office or a hospital. And so when Mark asks a question about Hipaa compliance and contact tracing, where are we going with that? Well, that's really what it comes down to, is that company wants to do contact tracing. That's great. It's their prerogative. The employee doesn't, if they want to put a policy in place that says, hey, this is our company standard, everybody has to adhere to it, and an employee doesn't want to, and that's grounds for termination. In the HIPAA world, it's called a sanction. Hey, go be it. But that company then has to make sure they secure that data, just like they're a hospital or doctor or anybody else, because that is medical data that they're required by federal law to protect and track, who touches it and who did what when.
Aaron, bring you back into the conversation here. I'm not sure. If you use consultants and contractors? So if you're going to set up protocols like the protocol that you set up, it's fairly easy to enforce them with employees. But a lot of organizations use contractors, they use consultants, they use outside organizations to supplement badged employees. Is this going to change the nature of how we work with our contractors, our consultants? Are we going to have to abandon some of the flexibility that has offered us as we move into this new protocol-enabled workplace?
Yeah, so Kubota is actually heavily in the contractor space, and what we've done currently is basically ask them not to come in the office at all. So we want to protect the badged employees as much as possible. So we're asking them to stay home and just work 100% remote right now until we kind of figure everything out on that aspect. I think you look at the contract stuff holistically also in do you really need people on, in the office? I mean, this has showed 100% that, we can work remotely. Do you need that contractor to travel into your office and sit there? And no, you don't. Just really managing them remotely, making sure, kind of goes back into how you're managing your FTEs. But I think it changes the game 100%. Everybody will be remote. I don't see a lot of people coming on site anymore. Unless it's absolutely needed for the job role that they're in.
Okay, so let's maybe change topics now. Thank you all for that. Certainly a lot of things for us all to be thinking about. And as I suggested before, there's not going to be, kind of a flag drop and we all return back. This is going to be gradual. I think we will learn a lot of these things as we go, and maybe it may be a slippery slope in some regards, but we'll be able to take this one step at a time and do as much as we're comfortable with. I just want to talk about the digital transformation that's going on right around us. So we kind of talked about the fact that the things that we used to do in person, we haven't been able to do. Whether that's going to a store and picking something physically up, whether that's an interaction with a customer service representative in a bank, as an example, whether that's experiencing an in-person event, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we've all had to beef up things like assisted service channels throughout this because they just became overwhelmed as people began to have to do more and more self-service. So my view is that, again, a lot of these, we're relying on technologies we'd already invested in to some extent. We're advancing plans faster because we all saw, kind of this digital tsunami has been coming at us for a while. So maybe we're advancing some of our plans there. But I'm going to suggest that, the digital has gone from being, kind of a game changer or a competitive advantage to being table stakes. And so, and probably your digital strategy needs to be synonymous with your business strategy. That puts a lot more pressure on IT to be able to support and advance the digital transformation that we've all been working on. So the question for the panel is, what are you changing in order to, in terms of the structure of your department, in terms of trying to support this rapid acceleration of digital transformation? And maybe you could comment on, are you looking at any specific initiatives around artificial intelligence, around chatbots, contact center automation, RPA, digital twins, any of these kind of technologies we've been kicking the tires on, but maybe not implementing yet? So open it up to the panel.
Well, this is Tom. We have chatbot, we have RPA. Those aren't my area. One thing we've been really focusing on is team upskilling and training the staff. We're going from what was a siloed organization to one where we want cross-functional team members. I want my team members to not just have one particular skill, but 6 or 7 or 8, and be able to reduce the handoffs and increase the flow of value to our customers. I'm a strong believer that IT needs to be the order shaper, not the order taker. And one thing that I always come down hard on my team is when they refer to other parts of the company as the business. I'm like, well,
right.
What you're saying is that IT is not the business, right? IT is the business too, right? We are one company. And as technologists, we need to help drive that change. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is around team upskilling, cloud training, Kubernetes, a lot of good stuff to help increase our value and along with our DevOps initiatives to move faster, to deliver more value quickly. So,
yeah, Tom, great start, great one. And I mean, let's face it, who's not exploring the software they have on hand today on how to best leverage it in the situation? Like our help desk platform, where we've turned on the AI component that lets it go ahead and suggest knowledge base articles based upon the service requests coming in. Little things to help manage the flow, because as more people go offline or work from home, we found that number of tickets just exploding because they themselves weren't used to working from home. And even though for us, for me, it was an easy one because we built this environment cloud first, cloud only from the ground up. So moving people off site was really easy. But for them, the mental change of how I'm working, I couldn't just ask the person next to me, well, how do I do this? We started seeing an influx of those support tickets, and how do we manage those, and how do we leverage our staff to manage those effectively, because that person needs help and needs help now. So those are just a couple of items there, but there's so much more we look at on what do we have in our existing portfolio that we can leverage to make things better. Teams was a no-brainer. As an Office 365 platform client, that was available to us already. And so the neat thing was how quickly people embraced that platform and how quickly they learned what it could do. And today, I'd say we're only about 25% into it, but it's made a huge difference in how we operate remotely.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to get people stop emailing spreadsheets, put the spreadsheet in Teams, multiple people can access it at the same time, as opposed to mailing it back and forth by email. Yeah. Same thing with other documents, the PowerPoints or Word docs, is that people can collaboratively share the document. I mean, it's been on Google forever, so there's no reason why we can't start doing it now. And it's a culture change for people. Right?
Yeah, email's like the crutch, I think. It's become the real crutch here. Some people, they've gone so far into emails, you just start ignoring it. And I think a lot of people are doing the same thing.
But I mean, we've wrought a substantial amount of change. I mean, to be frank, the some of the command structures are different. I don't know where my document is anymore. I sent you that. Well, did you send it in Teams? Is it attached in a chat? Is it in Teams files? Is it on email? Did you post it up on the shared drive? Is it in SharePoint? We're creating some confusion for people. Aaron, how do you keep up with that? How do you because they all come back to your, at some level, they're all going to come back to your service desk and say, I can't find the latest version of, how do you make sure that your folks are giving people the right advice situationally, let alone prepare your end users for this change?
Yeah, so that's something I even struggled with joining Kubota. We have numerous different platforms to communicate, share. We have Box, we have Google Drive, we have WebEx Teams, we have Slack. I mean, I still struggle to this day right now, trying to make sure that we kind of pick a platform and move forward with it. We're not a Microsoft shop from an aspect of Office 365, which has kind of been something I've known for a very long time. So I'm learning the Google space and the Hangouts and the Meets and certain other things, and trying to push the team to standardize on something, because we're currently, not in that place. So I can't. I would like to draw a line in the sand and say this is what we're using. This is how we're going to use it, and just move forward with it. But we're not there yet. So I'm actually anxious to listen to some of the other panelists here to see what they have to say.
So as you begin to, and I think Aaron, your point is a good one. In a crisis, you grab what's close at hand. So, a lot of times when we would implement a new collaboration suite, we would take our time. We would go with a traditional sort of a procurement kind of a process where we, do a needs analysis, release an RFP, release, et cetera, and take our time to implement changes as large as that. But we just grabbed whatever was handy so we could get on with it. And for the most part, like I said, I think we've all been surprised at how well a lot of these things worked, regardless of what platform we chose. So are we entering a new realm of how we procure enterprise software, where we're going to go to a more agile methodology? I'll just share a little story. I was doing a panel of CIOs in Pittsburgh, I think, a year or so ago, and they had a panel of non-CIOs, and one of the CFOs said, the problem with how long it takes you guys to implement anything is that by the time you finished implementing it, we've actually forgotten why you were doing it in the first place. So are we moving to a more agile way of deploying enterprise applications, procuring and deploying enterprise applications, or will we go back to the old way?
I don't think we're moving more agile as an industry, right? When you have cybersecurity concerns, you have legal concerns, privacy concerns, contractor concerns, a number of different groups. I think a lot of software development organizations have really embraced agile. They also need to educate the wider business partners in the organization and teach them too.
Anyone else on that one?
Yeah, I think the other, James, you kind of hit on a key point when it comes to these major projects, because we can always talk about Agile, we can always practice it, and yeah, we're going to leverage it where we can. But if you do like a major CRM or ERP implementation, you're going to talk about a long-term project, and there'll be Agile elements to it, but still it's a long-term project. And a lot of transformations fail or those big projects fail simply because people forgot, just like you said, what they started to do. And so that's really comes down to managing that project to make sure that people always remember where you were, where you are, and what the next step is. Always celebrate those small victories so you don't forget where you came from and why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay, so and then finally, as you know, and I mentioned, we accelerated a lot of things we were going to do. But as we've moved to some of these new, particularly collaboration, whether it's collaboration or whether it's some of our other systems, as we've moved into some of these new systems, what happens to the legacy systems that we have that maybe can't come into this new world? What happens to the systems we were going to retire over time, which we're retiring now? What happens to everything that we move to all of our on-prem equipment, which we may not have depreciated, which we're now not using because we've moved to the cloud? I mean, has anybody given any thought to what we're doing with those legacy systems as we've moved more quickly than we thought to this kind of remote environment?
I'll start. I think it highlights 100% like people that were, oh, we'll get to that later. Oh, we
technical
we don't
debt, right?
Yeah, where we they didn't want to do it, because we always had later and just kept pushing it off. I think this brings that to the forefront. Really shows that if we, what most of us probably wanted to do and make those applications, either push them out into Azure or just, find something different that's actually up to date that'll run on an operating system that's supported. It really forces the stakeholders to be like, okay, this obviously happened, and like you said, it could happen again, and more than likely probably will at some point. We need to push this to the forefront, get funding to do this now instead of just trying to keep pushing it off. So I think it's highlighted the actual need and not the want by IT just to say, hey, I need to move this because it needs to be supported. It's really, I need to move it now because you can't access it remotely, or it's too slow, or something along those lines, that it just has to get done now instead of just pushing it off until it's 2030 and you finally get to it.
Anyone else on that?
I think it gives opportunity to finally close down software applications. I think companies are really good at buying applications, onboarding them, but there is never a plan to stop using them. I think this will give more incentive to actually end of life some of these systems. They all can't move to the cloud. When you move to the cloud, you really should use cloud native principles such as 12-factor or similar. You just can't take old systems and lift and shift them because you don't gain anything by the cloud except a bigger bill. So, but this gives an opportunity to bring some software applications into end of life, which often isn't done.
All right, let's see if we have any questions from the audience now. Fanny, if I could ask you to post some of those. All right, so thank you, Thomas, for this. What's your perspective on the future of your organization's CX and EX relative to the impact of COVID-19? Anybody have a thought on that?
Well, I do. We actually have a chief experience officer who's focused on what we call the member journey of all of our business partners, of our customers. Their experience with us from the very first moment they interact with somebody related to us to the very end of their relationship with us, and all the way through that journey is a big part of their experience. And we have to make sure, and our focus is to make sure that's a pleasant experience as much as we can manage from beginning to end. And because we want that end to be a very long time in the future when they turn 65 and go to Medicare. So for us, that experience has always been a big forefront in how we conduct our business and what we do. And with this situation with COVID-19, it just helps us refocus that effort on what can we do to better manage that experience with our member. They're going through things that they didn't go through 6 months ago. So we have to have the empathy to look at things from their perspective. What can they do to help us? What can we do to make their life better? And not just with our member, but for our employees. Because without our employees, we're nothing. Let's face it. Anybody who tells you that we can automate everything, great. Get rid of all your employees, see how it goes. Oh, and then get rid of all your customers, see how it goes. people really are important. No matter how advanced we get, no matter how automated we become, people really are important. You have to take care of your employees. You have to take care of your customers. If you don't take care of your employees, they're not going to take care of your customers. So taking care of one is just as good as taking care of the other. In fact, it's required.
Thank you for that. Anyone else on that topic? Okay, do we a question from Craig. What are the panelists seeing or feeling about hiring? Will they only be hiring the workers they furloughed, or are they also looking for hiring new talent who are out looking for new opportunities? It's true, a lot of people on the market right now. I don't know where unemployment sits. 15%, I've heard, may go to 20%. So that puts a lot of good people on the market. What's your loyalty to the folks you furloughed? What if they don't have the right skill sets to work in this new world? What's your thoughts here? Thanks, Craig, for that.
So I'll start. Luckily, Kubota has not furloughed anybody, and we're actually hiring people as we go. I'm getting ready. We're hiring a security manager right now. We're hiring a couple people for out in our facility. So I look at it as in the spot that I'm in. There's a lot of great talent on the market right now, and I'm going to take full advantage of hopefully picking up a few of those guys. And so I'm actually looking forward to the current times, and being in the space where we need to add people. So it's a little different than hiring back furlough people. But yeah, I mean, I think it couldn't come at a better time for us when we're actually looking to expand our teams, and we can get some of that top talent that normally wouldn't be on the market.
One thing I've heard is there are people who will leave the job market and not return. They might be in a position where they're retiring, or they don't need to work, or they're just done with this and they're not going to go back. So I've heard that there will be opportunities to fill roles such as that. I've had executive recruiters reach out to me to try to sell their services about why I should consider using that particular person's company. And those are arguments that were made that this is now a time to really look at your team, and there are people who just won't return, and do you replace them? And of course, this person's trying to sell his service, so he's obviously has all these people ready to go. But I think that I've heard that unemployment in IT is still pretty low. I know that there are a lot of industries that are hurting really, really bad. Or even the place where we bring our dog, they've closed permanently, and we can't get our dog groomed from the place we used to go because they weren't able to weather the storm. So yeah, I think that there will be opportunities to, if you look hard, I think they're going to be there, right? Because I think everyone's going to assume they don't exist. So if you dig hard and you reach out, I think you can find opportunities even in this market.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, back in the last recession, I was a victim in that recession. But the one thing I realized was, no matter how bad things are, there's some segment of the economy that does well because of it. It's just the way things work. So if you do your homework and you look at what's doing well, you'll find the opportunities. And like Tom said, I mean, IT is doing pretty well. And Aaron said, yeah, you guys didn't furlough anybody. Well, on the technology side, we didn't either. We didn't lay anybody off. So, and as all these companies looking to make people work from home, they need more people. They don't need fewer in the technology side. So it's a great time to be in the technology sector, that's for sure.
I would agree. I mean, clearly, I've become one of those people who starts work at 6 a.m, and it's 8:14 my time now, and that's not an unusual day. There's an abundance of work for IT. Although Mike just gave me a statistic here that comes from CompTIA, 110,000 IT folks laid off as of last week nationally. Project managers and business intelligence down 10 to 12%. .NET and Java still hot. So not unexpected, given that we have kind of put the boots to a lot of projects that we couldn't do in this time when other priorities perhaps perhaps took hold. But interesting things. We are clearly, though, we're going to have to reskill a lot of people, and I like the comment that was made earlier. I call them T-shaped workers. So we need to create T-shaped workers now, so that they'll be deep in one particular area within our IT taxonomy, but they'll be broad across the top, so that they'll be able to have a better perspective as we move forward into this digital enablement. Last question before we return to the slide deck. Thank you, Deepak, for this. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. What are companies doing to address mental health issues emerging from COVID-19 lockdowns? Is there increased sensitivity about that?
With our company, there is. We made sure that our health programs for our members are the same ones we extend to our employees through this. So we make sure everybody has access to telehealth, so that they need to talk to someone, they need to reach out, they have something. We also, being a healthcare sharing ministry, we actually have a chaplain on staff, and he's there for all of us. And he's been worked pretty hard, so to speak, with everything going on. Not just with people in their situation, but their families and how this is affecting them. So he's there to help us and our employees through the situation, as well as the more traditional medical channels that we've made available to our employees. Because let's face it, if you're stressed out and that's what your focus is, you're not going to be focusing on doing a good job, or you're not going to be capable of focusing on doing a good job. And if you're not doing a good job, you're not helping your customer. So for us, it's back the whole thing. It's that cycle. Take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers, they'll take care of your business.
Yeah, Richard Branson talks about that a lot.
And I think if anything that we have learned throughout this, maybe not with specific regard to mental health, but we've learned to accommodate the needs of employees as they exist. Whether they're looking after elders, whether they have children at home, whether they have other issues that they need to, whether they're themselves vulnerable. So I think the one that being kind has been a real important side effect. I think people are acting in a kinder manner. Totally. So I think that has been one unexpected benefit we've gone. Okay, if we can return to the slideshow then for a second. And just advance the slide to our final topic. So hopefully we all had an IT strategy when this began. We all had an IT budget. We all had a process and a governance structure in place. A lot of that's gone out the window in the last 60 days or so. We've had to adjust our plans. We've had to recalibrate our project portfolios. We've advanced some projects. We've ended some projects. We've started all new projects. We've as was indicated earlier, we've sent people home, often breaking our own rules in terms of protecting data, of maybe even some regulations, with all the best intents, with the intent of maintaining operations over the long term. But at some point, we have to kind of repatriate a lot of these things, whether they're assets or workloads or people, etc. So I wanted to get the group's thoughts to finish off on what you're looking at doing in terms of recalibrating your IT strategy, your IT budget. You made promises to the business that you would undertake certain projects that would support their own business efforts. In some cases, the business requirements have changed. In other cases, you haven't been able to fulfill those. So let's start with the question: what are you doing to reestablish your IT priorities and initiatives? What are you doing about the IT strategy that you're clearly probably not following right now?
Well, for us, it was an acceleration of the timeline. We have no colo, we have no data center, we have no server closet. I have an IDF room with some switches and firewalls, and that's about as physical as I get on-prem. So we had the challenge with being cloud only is a lot of companies say they support it, but when it comes down to it, they always expect you to have something on-prem or be hybrid. And so it's been a real challenge in that regard, putting in the controls and security that we need. Not impossible, just more difficult. We're kind of writing the rule book as we go. So for us, it was a matter of taking that timeline and just accelerating, compressing it. For others, it's much different, I understand, but it was interesting for us, timeline, in that we built out our staff and we had all those projects started. It was just a matter of working the extra time, the extra days, and making sure things were, well, I should say, they were tested, but they were tested on an abbreviated schedule to make sure they worked before we blew everything up. And things like centralized encryption management, device management, remote application installs without GPO, things that you become accustomed to having that you don't have. So it really was, how do we find the important things in all those projects to make sure we can implement the security needed and let people work from remotely without that becoming a delay. And I think my staff will say it was a lot of long nights, but it was very nice to see things come together.
Tom, Aaron?
Sure. So there's a lot I definitely can't share, but what I can share is our continued push towards talent development. We started last year with this little contest to send people to Microsoft Ignite based on some Azure certifications. And here it is a year later, we have over 350 cloud certs in our company, which is a lot. And I know that maybe having a cloud cert doesn't make you an expert, but when you're talking about trying to drive towards a culture of continuous learning, you're getting people excited and getting them certified in cloud is really important. And now as we go forward and to build that T-based team or the V-based team, where you really want people to have depth in several areas, but knowledge of many others, having that culture of continuous learning helps drive excitement, helps drive talent to your organization, and helps let the employees know that you believe in them, you want them to learn new things, and you want them to deliver more value. So that's really what we've been doing a lot of. And it's really reached a point now of critical mass where it's just taken off, and it's exciting to see that over 350. That's just amazing. I never would have thought a year ago that that's where we'd be today. And so many people want to get cloud certs just to be part of that group. And the cloud's the future, at least for us, and it seems like it is for Toby. So,
Aaron, you just started a new job, I gather.
Yep.
So you come in, they hand you get a charter. They say these are the things that we want you to do. COVID-19 hits. How do you deal with that? How did you change on the fly? What did you do about your budget, which was probably, I mean, Toby, if you advanced all these projects, you were spending money earlier than you were supposed to. So Aaron, how did you handle that coming into a new role?
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, I was interviewing, before it all hit, and then basically came on, right after it was 100% work from home. So, I've really just tried to sit with my boss and understand what our priorities are now. Everybody's got a plan until you get kind of punched in the mouth. I like that saying, and I think we all got punched in the mouth when this came up. And so now it's how do you adapt and how do you prioritize and make sure you're doing the right things that are going to help your company out now, and more than likely they weren't what you had planned originally. So it's really, being a former Marine, I call it being Semper Gumby, always flexible and just go with what you need. And I think IT is strategically positioned to be able to do that automatically normally. And that's the way, like you talk about, having T people, just being flexible, making sure that we can support the current needs of our company and how we move forward.
Super. I'm going to remember that. Super Gumby. That's a good one. So let's close by seeing what other questions our audience might have before we move on to the next section. Fanny, do we have any other questions? So talking about T-shaped person skills, what about X-shaped people? Are we seeing more of X-shaped people these days? Yeah, I think there's a whole series of movies on X-shaped people, but I don't know what an X-shaped person is. Can anyone
I
comment
don't know
on
either.
I think it's probably more about cross-functional teams and how
Yeah.
probably that's probably where they're leading towards that one. Yeah, I mean I think that's what we're doing. I mean we need to work together more and make sure that we have all the right people in the right spots, plus be able to flex and do that. So I mean that's what I'm looking for from a team perspective is no matter what it is, let's get it done and let's if you're not the right person, let's do it, but let's kind of train you on that and kind of bring you up and let's work a lot better from a cross-functional perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything we do is I'm a big believer in not cubby holding someone in a silo, because I call it the bus theory. And there's no reason if you get hit by a bus, the company comes to a halt. That means we have to share knowledge. Everybody has a specialty, but everybody has knowledge of everything else as well. It builds nice rounded people. It makes us very flexible in how we handle a challenge that comes up. But it also means, like in this whole situation, I had a group of people who were doing things way outside their realm because they had some experience in it and can make it work.
So I don't think we're differing that much. I mean, that's kind of my impression of a T-based team. I'm only going to have so many Kubernetes certified developers, but I want all the developers to have some base understanding of Kubernetes. I think I want everyone to have cloud. I want everyone to have agile. Some people are going to be really, really good UI developers, but if that person is traveling back to India because his mother's sick, I need other people to fill in. So I mean, we're just having that cross functionality, but sometimes people are going to be experts at a couple things, but I want everyone else to know that skill. So I think we're talking the same thing, Sharon.
We touched a little bit on this next question earlier, and we'll make this the last question. What are you doing for worker safety? Are you investing in thermal scanners? Are you investing in a worker safety app for internal use? So maybe we'll close on this question.
I think we're going to be taking temperature. We're going to be looking at an app to attest to health, right? Following the different guidelines and markings on the floor, the tape or the stickers, right? As far as getting into really specifics, I can't speak to the scanners or not.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing pretty much the same thing. Temperature checks. Are you okay? We have the lines actually in the office tomorrow. That's one of the things we're doing. Is put the lines and the arrows in the hallways, but the thermal scanners and such, we're looking at those because it's a way for us to handle volume as people come through, in which they can go ahead and have their temperature checked without us having to be there, and they can record it's above or below, and kind of automate some of that process to keep one, that social separation, but two, kind of keep it a little more anonymous for them, so they're not sitting there and seeing what everybody else is watching them get their temperature taken.
Right. And Aaron, I think we covered off most of what you're doing, unless you have anything to add.
No, I think that's probably how things move forward, and how you get mass people in, I think, is scanners. Like what I was talking about earlier, when you have large facilities like we do, and you got to get a lot of people in and out. I think it makes total sense, and again, it comes down to also what do you do with that data. So it's full circle as you put those in. There's a lot more things to think about than just taking a temperature.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I think we had a great discussion. We started off talking about kind of what had transpired and really the massive changes that IT had fundamentally enabled for the organization. We moved from that to considering, what are we going to go through as we move forward? What are we going to go through in terms of enabling remote workers, of how many people would stay working remotely? Is that here to stay? I think we concluded that it is here to stay. That there are certainly gains for the organization, but that we will continue on in a hybrid environment. We talked about some of the issues around protocol and safety, doing what it takes. It's funny, I was talking to the CIO for the state of Alabama last week. He said, I got to run now, James, because I got to head out and I got to buy a whole bunch of tape to stick on the floor because I'm the only person here right now, and I got to mark the lines before everyone else comes back. So we're clearly all doing what it takes in that regard to get people back safety. We move from there to talk about some of the digital transformation that's here with us to stay, and the implications of that on our workforce. And I think there was a great discussion around talent and around training people and around creating T or X or some letter or another kind of shapes of workers. So I want to thank everybody for the discussion. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope our audience had. And with that, I will thank you for your time and turn it back over to Mike.
Well, thanks very much, James. This has been a phenomenal conversation, and I do want to thank Tom Sweet and Toby Buckalew and Aaron Rundall as well for joining us for this portion of the conversation. Tom, if you can hang with us for a little while, we'll get back to your pitch for the next month's chapter meeting. But this has been a phenomenal conversation. You can see there were quite a few questions that came in via LinkedIn and Facebook. So thanks very much, gentlemen, for your expertise and for your passion about moving us into the next new normal. So thanks very much. And James, we'll be in touch. We'll see you soon.
You bet.
Thanks. So we started out talking about the very fact that we have a lot of different kinds of programs at ABTP. So Fanny, if you can throw the slide up that I'm sharing right now. So this is our professional chapter meeting. Before at 4 o'clock, we had a large group meeting to do networking, looking for opportunities. So if you have opportunities and you're looking for great people, contact us at BTNG. That would be Chuck Vandewall. We have student chapters. I saw Sharon from DBU asking one of the questions earlier. We do have a phenomenal program for certifying people in leadership skills. And then we have some great partners. So like I told you before, Nina DeFrancisco has been a partner with us for many, many years. I'd like her to come on right now and share some overview of the association partnership program that she put together for us and what those benefits are. So Nina, take it away. And you are muted right now.
Thank you for that. Happens quite often. Well, thank you, everyone. So for many of you members who may not know who Infotech is, we are a best practice IT advisory research firm that provide methodologies, toolkits to all of our members, from do-it-yourself all the way to getting in the trenches with you or doing the work for you. So that's just a quick overview. And what our partnership program looks like, if you would mind turning to the next slide, please, is that we are offering somewhat of our services to a degree to all of you members. And what the services are mainly they're relevant, timely, best practice research that we are providing based off of your suggestions. So ideally, what we want to do is work with the board to understand what are the most important top topics that you would want us to share on our research, and then of course provide that to you. I personally will be look at me as a kind of a personal concierge for any of you who would like to either look into some of the topics that are not necessarily being presented from the board as a whole, but are kind of timely and relevant to you. So for instance, monthly, we will be sharing some of the most relevant content. On a quarterly basis, we will be providing some of our blueprints, and our blueprints are more of a step-by-step guide to execute on your either core IT processes or IT strategy. And then yearly, we are going to be offering at least one complimentary diagnostic, which is of your choice. And those different diagnostics can range from anywhere from taking a survey and understanding what is your CIO to CEO business alignment, to IT staffing. There are quite a few that we are going to offer that we can, of course, share with you after this presentation. And then also doing kind of a custom benchmarking for you. So knowing that many of you come from different industries, different backgrounds, different roles, if you wanted to kind of understand on a personal level within your company where you are benchmarked at, then we can easily work with you behind the scenes to kind of get you to where you want to the knowledge that you want to know. Next slide, please. Oh, that's kind of it in a nutshell. So what we have put together for you, which can also be sent out after this, is our COVID Research Resource Center, as well as a Cost Management Center. All of this is complimentary to you from and to all ABTP members, and you can access this at any time. And this ranges from free complimentary webinars to research to blueprints to analyst calls, you name it. It's kind of all there for you. And so this landing page that is being shown on the screen right now, this will be updated, if not monthly, it'll be at least every other month with the most updated content that we are offering to all of you. And the reason why we're doing that is because we have over 40,000 different pieces of content that we don't want to overwhelm you by any means, which is why we will be certainly working with the board to ensure it is the most relevant, up-to-date topics. And that is kind of it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nina. So one of the things that that you'll note, for those of you who are members, you've already received emails in your inbox that give you access to those to the COVID site. I think we've even shared it on LinkedIn as well. So thanks very much, Nina, for all of your hard work in putting this together for us. Look forward to continuing to working, and thanks for getting James to come out and share some up-to-date research and really help our local practitioners to think through the way that we're looking at this post-COVID world that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to getting to know all of you members now that I know the board.
Thanks very much, Nina. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So next, I'd like to ask Deepak Seth to come on and talk about one of our other exclusive two-year sponsorships, and then do a little bit of a demo of his own personal profile. So Deepak?
Hey, good. Hey, nice to join you guys again. So Mike, do you want to start with the Futurist Minute first? If you could go there, I'll quickly get that out of the way. Hey, guys, following on with after such a great panel is a very tough task. I'm trying to fill in very big shoes, which James, Tom, Aaron, and Toby have shared with you. So this time around, as we were going through what they were talking about, I think one thing which comes to everyone's mind is what do we as individuals or as companies need to do in order to do what all they were talking about. And I think one of the key important things, messages for all of us is that we need to step out of our comfort zones. Whether it's if you are an employee used to working in office, now you're working from home, so that's stepping out of your comfort zone. We have to take on professional challenges beyond our personal comfort zones. As James was mentioning about the CIO of the state of Alabama buying tape to put on the floor to mark things for people. So that may have been stepping out of his comfort zone for him. Another thing which would become very important is the role of collaboration. A lot of the nature of collaboration will change. We have been used to interacting very close personally with each other. Now we need to learn to do that virtually. So that's a very important stepping out of the comfort zone. Another very, very important one, and this is where the connections we are forming with Infotech and others will come to play, is the ability to never stop learning, because we need to be continuously learning, keeping abreast with what's happening out there and staying ahead of the curve. And as organizations, we need to think fast, we need to think forward. So rather than the long debates we are used to about things, we need to make quick and rapid, real-time, data-driven decisions and then we need to create new business models to ride the next wave of innovation. So that was my futurist minute for this time around. Be comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone, because discomfort is the new comfort zone, and we all need to get used to dealing with it, playing in this new comfort zone. So Mike, if we can go back to what we were going to talk about. Great. So another thing which Mike wanted me to talk about was about Kiboli, which is this new app which Mike is closely involved with, and he has got several of us ABTP members engaged with. So I thought I'll come with you and share with you some of my own experience dealing with it. So I will need to share my screen for that. So let me do that.
I'm going to drop my screen now so you can take it.
So let me do.
So while you're looking at that, I'll vamp a little bit regarding your getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. One of the things that we find, and I think it came up multiple times in the panelists' discussion today, is that we need to be able to change the way we think in order to move forward. There are lots of different opportunities right now that if we don't take advantage of the disruption that we've had in the marketplace and in our businesses and in our families, that we won't be able to make the changes. But this is a unique opportunity to get out of your comfort, not just for yourself, but for your business. So,
absolutely. Yeah, that was a nice segue, and I hope everybody is being able to see my screen. So one of the and Mike, thanks for making that connection, how this Kiboli is also linked to stepping out of the comfort zone, because till now a lot of us have been used to either as recruiters or even as candidates, we have been used to preparing, say, paper-based resumes. But now this one, what Kiboli does is it takes it one level further of making our profiles more video-based, in getting it into a format which could resonate even better with hiring managers and recruiters. So this right now on your screen, what you're seeing is the Kiboli profile. Basically, it has some details about me. My resume is uploaded here, things of that sort. And then if I go into this next section here, which is play video or audio. So this is an interview. So can you see the video screen now, Mike?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So basically what it is a structured interview which Mike or has with candidates. And what this does is it takes this the entire conversation and creates a timeline of the conversation, so which is a transcript of the entire conversation, and it gives an ability to someone to search for specific keywords in the conversation, so that they can cue the video to that specific place. For example, if I want to look at, okay, where did we speak about innovation? So once I apply that filter here, it gives me the spots in this video profile where we spoke about innovation. So if you are a recruiter or a hiring manager looking at wanting to know what I think about innovation, you can click on that particular section and it will take you to that spot in the video where I'm talking about innovation. So this is a neat little search here. The search is also organized by keywords. So some specific areas have already been highlighted. So if you want to look at what the candidates thoughts about people are, or about capability are, means you can pick those spots and it will take you to those places in the video where that conversation is happening. Similarly, it creates bookmarks according to various topics and takes you there. So I think this could be very, very transformative, both for candidates as well as recruiters, because hiring managers, because you can quickly queue up videos of different individuals and see and quickly compare, okay, what does Deepak have to say about innovation versus what Fanny has to say about innovation, things of that sort. So Mike, I'll pause here a bit in case there's something else which you want to showcase or highlight.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out as the first slide shows, this is a 2-year commitment from Cloudix to provide these Kavoli profiles. This is provided free of charge to director and above individuals that are ABTP members. If you're in the Business Technology Networking Group, because we treat Business Technology Networking Group people just like they're a member while they're in transition, we'll also help you with putting your profile together. So what this does as well is then I can actually send, or you can send to hiring managers or to individuals that you're interested in getting to know you better, your profile. And it really is a digital profile of your leadership philosophy, the results that you've had, and the way that you think through things. So it's very powerful. I'd love to chat with you and get the benefits that Deepak and many others have already received.
Yeah, I can vouch for that because I sat through that interview with Mike, and it's very well structured, very well organized, and what it does, it is focused on leadership roles and things like that. So it bring those attributes forth, and it does so in a way which is very natural. So it's not artificial. It's very natural. It's a conversation. But then the transcript of that conversation is providing valuable tools for hiring managers and recruiters to look at that information in a new, transformative, disruptive, innovative way, stepping out of their comfort zones, candidates stepping out of their comfort zones too, but which is which is much needed in this day and age now.
And now that I have about 15 of these interviews done, I have a fairly good cadence to set with an individual to walk them through what the questions are, answer any questions that they have prior to having a recording 2 or 3 days later, so that they can think through and plan this video in advance. So thanks very much, Deepak, for that. And now I'd like to ask Fanny Dunnigan to come in and talk about the DFW Biz Tech events that are happening, or at least we're hoping are happening soon.
Hi, everyone. Like Mike said, one of the great perks of being part of our organization, Association of Business Technology Professionals, is we partner with a lot of technology events and conferences around town. And as you know, even though we are socially distancing, if you go to the next slide, we are still virtually connecting. And that was one of the wonderful things that I saw in all the live feeds, is people networking with each other in the live feeds, in the comments, and meeting each other. So that's one thing that we can leverage right now while we're virtual. But we wanted to highlight a few events that will be coming up this summer. And as ABTP members, you will get discounts to these events. There is the Elevate IT conference at the Irving Convention Center in July. And you can go to that website that you see there, EIT Events, and then use that discount code to get complimentary entry. And similarly for Innotech, another conference in August, also around IT technology, we have a discount code ABTP9D. So take a screenshot or watch this again, but those are some of the perks of being part of ABTP. And we are always looking for new members out there and people that are just enthusiastic about technology.
Yeah, thanks very much, Fanny. So the interesting thing is, I didn't put the slide in this time, but we're looking at about, for the $150 membership fee, it's about $2,700 worth of value if you take advantage of all of the things that we have available.
And all the wonderful learnings from people like that were on our panel today. I mean, it is just, we're always featuring great IT leaders that we can all learn from. And it's great sharing, knowledge sharing, and networking as well.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks very much, Fanny. I do want to talk about saving the dates. July 28th, Elise Cortez. August 25th, Robert Hunt. But I wanted to give Tom a minute again just to talk about navigating your career in uncertain times. So Tom, what are we going to be talking about in June? I think we're still going to be virtual at that point.
Sure.
Elevate IT is happening July 10th. Maybe we'll be in person again on July. But anyway, we'll be doing this with a panel. So what are you going to be talking about in June?
Sure. Talk about people who are in transition or people who are employed but are concerned about how the world is changing and how they need to transform themselves. Many people want to do better in their career, but they haven't had the mentorship. They haven't had anyone who's helped them. I'm going to share my experience. I'm going to share what I know, some mistakes I've made, and help people, create a path for themselves that they can self-manage. I really want to give back. People have been able to help me throughout my career, and this is my opportunity to share what I know and to help those who would like to continue developing their career, to give them additional skills and knowledge. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks very much, Tom. Look forward to that. Thanks again for spending the time with us and bringing your expertise and experiences to bear tonight. And we'll look forward to next month as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This next slide, I just wanted to give you a picture of our BTNG group. Chuck Vanderwall has done a really good job in growing this organization. We had Lisa Lowry and Rick Martinez today sharing tips and tricks about how to get yourself ready and how to prepare for interviews and such for your next role. So it was a very lively conversation. Those happen on Zoom. It's a little more interactive than we do for these chapter meetings. But I think if you're looking for an enhancement to your current career or to a job, check out connect with Chuck Vanderwall, and he'll connect you with the BTNG group. That's pretty much what I had to share tonight. I really want to thank Fanny Dunnigan for stepping up and becoming our producer for this. We had a really fun.
It was a lot of fun.
a lot of fun learning this new technology.
Yeah.
Starting to get a little more comfortable with it. It's still a little stressful.
Yeah.
I think the panelists can attest to. But it's a new way of being, and I think moving forward, Fanny is actually we're going to morph this virtual with the on-site. And in that situation, we may be able to have multiple cameras and all kinds of fun stuff. So
For sure.
it's going to be fun. I appreciate you stepping into the breach and helping us get to this next.
My pleasure. Yes. And for those of you that are on Facebook, we're also live on Facebook concurrently, facebook.com/AITP Dallas. So find us there if that's kind of your platform of choice.
Yeah, and the final plug there is we have 2 years worth of presentations from these chapter meetings. You'll notice in the last 3 months, we've taken it up a notch because we had to improve our game, and we'll look at what that looks like in the future. So thanks again to all the board members, our sponsors, and for those of you who came to spend your evening with us. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon. Godspeed. Bye-bye.